Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, where, empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. My name is Joanna Alexander, and my pronouns she, her. With me today are our minister, Rev. Jen Youngsun, our new director of music, Joe Rondeau. Yay! Interim Director of Faith Formation, Sarah Sauter. Collaborative keyboardist, Suzanne Giordano. Yay! Daniel Blades, our board president, and working behind the scenes, technical communications coordinator, Kat Johnson, and AV volunteer, Phil Stevens. As you enter this sanctuary, and at any point during the service, you may write your joys and sorrows in our book, light a candle, or place a stone in water. Let that be your prayer today. If you're joining from home, you can write prayers of joy and sorrow into the Zoom chat, which will be open until the start of the sermon. And during the week, you can go to our pastoral care portal on our website to let our ministers know what you're going through. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. If you are visiting us today, we'd love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form. They are in two places, in the pamphlet rack on the wall by the kitchen on the way into the social hall, and on the round table near the art gallery administrator's office as well. If you're online, the link is being dropped into the chat now. The chalice lighting today is by Cynthia Landrum, the Minister Emerita of the Universalist Unitarian Church of East Liberty in Clark Lake, Michigan. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other. We light this blue candle for peace in Ukraine. And now let's say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jen Youngsun, and I have the pleasure of serving this congregation. I use the pronouns she and her. And I welcome all of you here today, especially on this very, very happy occasion. Today is New Member Sunday. Several times a year, we formally welcome new members. And these are people who have taken the Faith Forward classes, or they have transferred their membership from another UU congregation, and they are ready to take that next step into deeper commitment with this spiritual community. Their photos and their stories will be in the weekly newsletter, I believe, starting next week. And so you'll get to know them a little bit better. Please make the effort to say hello and get to know our new friends. This is a good time, actually, to remind ourselves of the difference between welcoming and othering. And so on your chairs, you'll find a handy guide for you to read later and consider on your own. We will also drop the link to that document into the Zoom link for those of you who are at home. You know, as a person of color, I know exactly what it feels like to enter a new space full of strangers. And I know what it's like to be welcomed with extraordinary respect. May all who enter here find a truly welcoming and transforming community. I'd like to invite our newest members to please come forward. Is Avnas here? Okay. Because I would definitely like to see Avnas. So we have today Barbara Kenny. Oh, there's Avnas. Barbara Kenny, if you would come and kind of make a little semicircle up here, that'd be great. So this is Barbara Kenny and Chris Kenny, Marty Wilder. We have Mary Beth. Can you help me with this name? Chaconas, and Todd Hannabas. So we have Mary Beth and Todd here. We have Terry Wright. We have Phil Stevens. You have to come down, please. I'm going to try to get out of everybody's way here. So why don't we practice some names here? We have Phil. You want to repeat after me? Phil, Terry, Todd, Mary Beth, Marty, Chris, Barbara. Our new members. Yes, let's give them a round of applause. So when you all signed the membership book, you signed on to this free and liberal faith, but you did not sign on to a specific creed or a doctrine. We are not bound by common belief. We are bound by the promises that we make to one another. We covenant with all other Unitarian Universalist churches, fellowships, societies around the world to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, and finally, we covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. We are also bound by this particular church's covenant of right relations, which we will say together. Daniel.
Good morning. I'm Daniel Blades. I am the president of your board of trustees, and I would like to lead everyone in our church in our covenant of right relations. So I would ask you, as you are willing and able, to please repeat after me. We covenant to build a religious community. Guided by respect. And sustained by our principles. We will listen appreciatively. Speak with care. express gratitude, honor our differences, and assume good intentions. We will communicate directly, honestly and compassionately, particularly when we are in conflict. When we hurt one another, we will ask for forgiveness and make amends. And when we are hurt, we will try to forgive and reconnect in a spirit of right relationship. In celebration of the common mission that unites us, we will abide by this covenant.
Thank you. We didn't say Avnas's name. This is Avnas Marsh. So, Avnas. We're looking forward to seeing you. Avnas is going to help us with our spring equinox ritual next week. So you will see Avnas again. Thank you all, and welcome, welcome to this church.
Hello, all. My name is Joseph Rondeau. I am the new director of music. When I was talking to any of you, Joe is fine. Joseph is fine if you prefer. My pronouns, I use either he, him, or they, them. I just wanted to say thank you for the welcome that I've received already over the last few days and give you just a quick introduction about myself. So I am a Massachusetts native. I'm here studying at the University of Oregon, and I have degrees in voice and in music composition, which is what I'm studying here as well. I am in my first year here. I've only been in Eugene for about 6 months, so the whole area is still pretty new to me. So if you have any favorite spots, let me know.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Sauter, your interim director of faith formation, and I use the pronouns she and her. You're getting a little preview this morning of 3 of our 4 new religious education staff as we continue our very participatory worship service this morning. You will be invited to say a few words as they raise their cue cards. This story appeared in What If Nobody Forgave? And it's been edited by Colleen M. McDonald. Long ago, or yesterday, or perhaps right around the corner, or maybe somewhere halfway in between, there was a town that sat, quiet and content, tucked into the shadow of a mountain. And carved on the side of the mountain, big and tall, so no one could miss them, were the words, "The answer is no." Practice with me. The answer is no. No one knew where the words came from or why they were there. They'd just always been there. But oh my goodness, the people who lived in that town cuddled into that mountain were glad to have those words there, because whenever the townspeople had a question, all they had to do was look up in the mountain and read it. And the answer was always no. Making decisions was very simple, and life went on smoothly and easily in the town cuddled in the mountain, until one day. Now, on that particular day, Ma Custis was about to make dinner for her family, and she couldn't decide, because sometimes you can't, whether to make stew or steak, pasta or potatoes, donuts or dumplings. So she went out in the yard. Should I make liver for dinner tonight? And she looked up at the mountain, and the mountain said no. All right, I knew that. Really, nobody's crazy about liver. But should I make steak for dinner? And the mountain said no. Should I make chicken? And the mountain said no. Should I make tacos or tofus, baked beans or broccoli, pork chops or popcorn? But the mountain said the answer is no. Ma Custis asked questions until the sun disappeared behind the mountain. She kept on asking questions until the sun came up around the other day. All the mountain ever said was, the answer is no. Because Ma couldn't get an answer that was any kind of an answer, she and her family went all night and the next day and all through the next night without dinner. Finally, Ma gave up and made liver anyway, even though the mountain said no and everyone hated liver. But Ma Custis had had enough. She glared at the mountain, stomped her foot, and shook her fist. Why is the answer always no? Why can't we just say yes every once in a while? So Ma Custis turned around and stomped away to ring the town bell and call a town meeting. Well, when that bell rang, the whole town came running, and from the oldest man with the longest beard to the youngest kids that needed carrying, no one would miss a town meeting. They all came, and they all listened carefully as Ma Custis told her story. Seems to me that we've got a problem. The mountain just isn't helping us like it should. Seems to me it would be nice if it would say yes just once in a while. The townsfolk knew Ma Custis had a point, and they didn't much like this idea, but they decided changing something that had been the same for so long might be the answer. But after they thought and thought some more, they finally nodded solemnly, and the mountain was to be recarved. Mason Sharp, the stone carver, nodded along with the rest of them. He scratched his nose, adjusted his cap, and slowly gazed up the length of the mountain. Then he cleared his throat and said in his gravelly voice, "Looks to me like I could do the carving if that's all right with you." And so it was. Mason spent the next 2 weeks up on the side of the mountain, chiseling and chipping and carving away, and coming down only when it was too dark to see. And when he was done, the mountain said, "The answer is yes." Mason rang the bell to call the town together, and once again they all came running. From the oldest woman with the whitest hair to the youngest kids who still needed carrying, they all wanted to see the new sign, and they all wanted to cheer for the stone carver and all his hard work. Ma Custis, who had started all of this, came right up to the front of the crowd. She figured she ought to be the first person to ask the first question of the new and different mountain, since she discovered the problem with the old one. She stepped right up to the foot of the mountain, looked way up to the top, and said, "Should I make liver for dinner tonight?" And the mountain said, "The answer is yes." Well, now Ma Custis almost fell over in surprise. But Pa Custis told me would never forgive me if I served liver again. And all my children threatened to hide in the barn for a week. Should I really serve liver? And the mountain said, "The answer is yes." The townspeople began to grumble. They didn't like the sound of this, and Ma Custis's family grumbled the loudest. "But well, I can't," Ma said. I just can't serve liver again. I promised I wouldn't." "Are you telling me I should break my promise?" But the mountain said, "The answer is yes." The grumbling got louder, and Ma Custis, while she glared at the mountain again, stomped her feet and shook her fist, and she turned to the townspeople and said, "This just isn't right. This can't be right. What are we going to do?" Once again, the townspeople put on their thinking caps, and everyone thought. Ma Custis, Pa Custis, all the Custis kids, who probably thought the hardest of all because they were worried about the liver. Finally, the smallest one of the Custis kids piped up, "Why does it always have to be one answer? Can't we have more?" The townspeople gasped. No one had ever thought of such a thing before. They mumbled and grumbled and talked among themselves. Finally, they decided the mountain ought to say, "The answer is sometimes yes and sometimes no and sometimes wait and see and sometimes I just don't know." But Mason, the stone carver, who'd been listening to all this, cleared his throat and said, "I'm not sure I can do that, even if I did finish carving in the new change. Well, it's going to take a lot of time. I can't work all day like I did the last time. How about I work on it, and when I can, we'll hang something on, we'll hang some kind of a sign on the mountain that tells people that the answer is coming." And so it was. A new sign was hung, and it said, "The answer is under construction."
Thank you, Sarah, for that story, and thank you to our teachers for helping. In a few minutes, we're going to send the children to their classes. We're going to sing them out, but before we do that, why don't we just take a breath? Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in love, breathe out peace. Breathe in all that is true about the world. And then breathe out your hopes and dreams for it. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. So it's springtime, and if it's spring at church, it means that it is the pledge season. You have until April the 3rd to make those pledges for the new church year. Everything is online, but if you want paper, you can see Izzy in the office, and she'll give you a paper form. So far, we have received over $175,000 in pledges for the new year toward our goal of $615,000. Now, I know 615,000 may feel like a big number to you, but you know what? This church has done a lot of amazing things. I also want to acknowledge that this time of the annual budget drive can be stressful for some people, and especially those who are facing some financial challenges. Please know that we are here to help. So please contact me directly, and let's find a way to ease some of that burden and that stress. Today, we're going to hear from two of our members, first Madeline Ferguson and then Jones Hollister. They're going to share their stories in this stewardship moment. Because Maddie is over there teaching, she prepared this video.
Hi, my name is Madeline Ferguson. I'm a Spirit Jam teacher and former Bridger here at UUCE. I'm here to talk about why I love UUCE. I first came to the building when I was in 4th grade at Cesar Chavez, that's right by the church. And when I was about 10, my mom wanted to find a church that would be our home, and so we found UUCE, and I knew it was a good place because my family, my friends, and the cocoa was there. I'm proud to be a UUCE member because we strive to make a world where everyone feels safe, loved, and empowers change in our community. Si se puede! Mama! 1, 2, 3. Si se puede! Okay.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jones. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm glad to be here today. Throughout my life, folks have asked me why I attend church and why I consider myself religious when I am not a Christian. Queer and disabled friends have asked why I still call this place my religious home when I don't always feel seen, respected, and included as a queer, trans, disabled person. As a teen, the answer was based on feeling more welcomed in my Unitarian Universalist youth group and church than in other places in my life. I was seen as a person with something valuable to share and was not explicitly harassed for being myself like I was in other places. In my late teens, though, Unitarian Universalism became my faith. I realized that my perception of what is holy is that interdependent web of all things, that gravity between ourselves, the fine filament of connection that centers us within community is holy in my eyes. All else arises from that, and all things come back to that. Our covenants, like the one we did today, are agreements that nurture those connections. Our commitment to justice is critical as our liberation is tied to that of all others. I am a religious Unitarian Universalist because our faith at its foundation is a commitment to our interdependence, and that commitment is the work of faith. And that's also why this community, why all of you, why this place, imperfections and all, is my religious home, and why you are my family. We are imperfect. Our words and actions erase identities, our assumptions and habits exclude, and we cling at times to songs and traditions that are white-centered and discount the value of others' identities. And this is a community where learning to do better is part of who we are together, because those connections are not just a nicety, they are holy. I have faith that this church, this congregation, is a place where we can talk about what isn't affirming, respectful, inclusive, and create together a better world as we do the holy work of nurturing the connections between us all. That is why I'm proud to call this my faith, this church my home, and you my family. Blessed be.
Our reading today is It Matters What We Believe by Sophia Lyon-Faz. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged.
Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies.
Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days and fears of unknown calamities.
Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness.
Some beliefs are divisive, separating saved from unsaved, friends from enemies.
Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern.
Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction.
Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration.
Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness.
Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth.
Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world.
Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. There will come a day, if it hasn't already, when Answer Mountain stops giving answers. There will come a day, if it hasn't already, when the armor of absolute certainty will begin to crack and fall away. This is the moment, as feminist theologian Sharon Welsh put it, when we are called to move from an ethic of control to an ethic of risk. This is the threshold between certainty, which is a matter of the head, and faith, which is a matter of the heart. Faith. That's one of those big churchy words that we use all the time around here. Almost every day, I probably say. We are a faith community. Here we are in this people of faith, among the people of faith. Our faith holds us. Our faith sustains us. But what does that word really mean? When I was a child, I learned that I could be a good and faithful servant of God if I just would believe the right things. If my faith was strong enough, I could even believe things that didn't make sense to me. The grown-ups in my Korean Presbyterian church, they were so certain that their faith was the one right and true way, and so I learned from them that faith, belief, and certainty were all the same, all scrunched up into a big ball. No wonder it's so confusing to talk about faith, especially in a religiously diverse community such as this one. Thankfully, there is someone that can help us to pull apart that tangled knot of faith and belief and certainty. One of the most influential liberal Christian theologians of our time was Marcus Borg. Has anybody ever heard that name? Yeah, Marcus Borg. He spent his long and very distinguished career right here at Oregon State. And after he retired from that professorship, he retired to Crook County, which I've never visited, but I understand is in the middle of Oregon. And then he died in 2015. As he stressed that the experience of God was more important than belief in God, he also said, faith is not an adherence to a list of propositions and statements, because that is a matter of the head. Faith describes our relationships, and that is a matter of the heart. So Dr. Borg describes 4 aspects of faith that I want to cover with you today: outlook, trust, commitment, and belief. First, outlook. Outlook is our worldview, our relationship with the whole of everything, and matters how we look upon the whole of existence because it affects the way we respond to it. Some people see the world as innately hostile, full of danger and violence, and they tend to respond to that with fear and suspicion. Some people see the world as completely indifferent to human endeavors, our efforts of meaning-making, and so it is neither hostile nor supportive of our lives, and they may respond with ambivalence for the whole and focus rather on their individual desire. Others see the whole as life-giving and nourishing. They see the world as gracious and generous and abundant rather than indifferent or threatening. Unitarian Universalists tend to hold this outlook. It motivates us to work for the greater good, for tikkun olam, for repair of the world. And you hear this perspective when we say things like, the arc of justice bends, the arc of the universe bends toward justice. So the second aspect of faith is trust, and that's our relationship with uncertainty. I don't know about you, but I have been feeling a lot of uncertainty lately. When we come to the edge of what we know, when there's no more research to do, no more articles to read, no more thinking to be done, we still have to face that next step, right? Without faith, we can teeter right there on that edge for a very long time. Analysis paralysis. Either we do nothing, or we just spin our wheels doing the same thing over and over again. With faith, with a relationship with uncertainty, we can take that step. We can make that call that's been waiting. We can enter that room. We can say the words, knowing that somehow, no matter how scared and certain, nervous we are, we will find the strength that we need. So I wonder, when you're faced with that situation of uncertainty, what do you trust? Whom do you trust? The third aspect of faith is commitment. Our relationship with the ground of being, with the ultimate concern, with God, Allah, or the deep egoless self. Chi, universal energy. There are 100 names, right? And whatever language or image you use, being faithful means being loyal to that primary relationship, keeping first things first. Even though Unitarian Universalists don't hold one concept of what that first and primary commitment is, we do teach that commitment to something larger than ourselves, bigger than our own ego, that is what is going to lead us to a more meaningful and interconnected life. The fourth and final aspect of faith is belief. Our relationship with knowing, with knowledge. Now, I save belief for the end because belief and faith have become synonymous, really. They're so tied together, and because faith and belief have become so tied together, it has led some people to run in the opposite direction of a spiritual or religious life. And so let me spend a little bit of time uncoupling those two things. According to scholars, before this modern era, the word belief was really closer in meaning to the word beloved. Prior to the 16th and 17th centuries, the word belief didn't mean believing in the true statements or propositions that were offered to them. It meant to hold dear, to love, to respond from one's heart. In this way, belief was really more in line with the other aspects of faith we just talked about. Now, if we still were able to hold this ancient meaning of belief as beloved, then I think it would be okay to have those two words side by side together, faith, belief. It would be okay for that intermingling. That would be fine. But we have lived with the modern usage of the word belief for so many hundreds of years that we really have lost that original meaning. And so we do need to pull those two apart, because we have reduced the word belief to a matter of the head. Now, let me say that the original meaning of the word hasn't totally gone away, because when I look upon this congregation and I say, I believe in you, that is absolutely a matter of my heart. It means I have faith in you. It means I have trust in you. It means that I am committed to what we are doing here, and you are beloved in my sight. But we live in a very cynical world, don't we? And belief is mostly understood as giving our mental assent to some statement or proposition or claim. So there are two historical forces that help to shift the meaning from a matter of the heart to a matter of the head. So the first was the Protestant Reformation, and the second was the Age of Reason. In the 16th century, a bunch of new Protestant denominations were popping up, and the way they distinguished themselves from the church in Rome was in what they believed. It wasn't even like their practices were different or the way they worshiped were different. I mean, those distinctions had already been made, but now it was a matter of correct thinking, right thought, right belief, and believing, in a certain set of statements, creeds, doctrines. That kind of belief became associated with faith. And then the age of science and reason came along, unfolding and bringing new light into the dark corners of religion. And now there was a conflict between the new revelations of science and the old claims of religion. What are you supposed to do with this? Faced with this conflict, many people dug in and said, well, if you are truly faithful, then you will believe the literal words of the Bible. You will believe, if you have faith enough, that the world was created in 6 days. You will believe that women should not speak in church, and you will believe that homosexuality is a sin. And this is kind of where we are today. In everyday modern language, belief is a matter of the head. It's an opinion about a fact. When people are faced with a conflict between what they've been taught by their religious community and some new facts that have been discovered by science and reason, some will give their mental assent to the religious doctrine as proof of their deep faith. Please don't misunderstand me. I do not mean to disrespect the devout. There are practitioners in every corner of the spiritual realm who hold beliefs that may seem unusual to me, and it's not my intent to disparage them. But we see so often in these days faith being conflated with belief. And sometimes when that happens, faith loses its transformative power because, as you've probably witnessed, you can believe all the right things with your head. You can quote scripture and creed and doctrine and still be a miserable, sad human being. And if you hold political or social power, you can do quite a lot of damage. Abraham Heschel, the wonderful Jewish philosopher, once lamented that faith has been replaced by creed. As a result, faith has become a dusty heirloom rather than a living fountain. And religion speaks with the voice of authority rather than the voice of compassion. This month, we are all together engaging in the practice of renewing faith. And that means renewing or refreshing our relationship to the whole, with uncertainty, with the ground of being, and with knowing. If you have grown cynical about life as a whole, what can you do to renew the faith, your faith in the inherent benevolence of life? There's one cherry tree blooming on the banks of the river by my apartment. And yesterday I looked at it for a very long time. And to me, that tree is proof that the whole life-giving world is nourishing and good. If you have uncertainty that stops you from moving forward, what can you do to strengthen your trust in yourself, in God, in universe, in each other? If you don't have a sense of God or the eternal source of love or whatever you want to call that thing that is bigger than your ego, how can you start building that relationship? And if you tend to stay solely in what you know in your head, how can you start paying attention to what is beloved, what you find beloved in your heart? I do hope that you will spend some time this month, in this month of March, when the winds of spring blow hard and bring the promise of renewal, and consider strengthening your faith. May it be ever so. Amen.
Let us say together the words of our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now, as you leave this place, may your faith in the essential goodness of life go with you. May it transform your heart. May it open your heart. May it guide you now and always. Go in peace, everyone. Go in love, my friends. Bye-bye.